All right, welcome to the Explainer. So, we're kicking this explainer off with a journal entry dated August 22nd, 2025, and it starts with just two words. A pretty cryptic military reference that, well, it really sets the tone for a wild story about information warfare.
It really makes you wonder, right? What if a book could be a weapon? That's the core idea we're diving into today. We're unpacking a story from our source material all about information, surveillance, and a really strange discovery that spins out from that one question.
Okay, so to really get what's going on here, you have to understand the author's point of view. They start by describing the situation they're in, which they claim is just a relentless, high-tech surveillance campaign targeting them.
And we're not talking about your average commercial flight. The journal claims these planes are flying super low right over their home, like clockwork. The alleged mission? To actually try and intercept their satellite internet uplink. Basically, to snatch every piece of data they're sending out. But, the planes are apparently just the beginning. The author says it's part of a much bigger pattern. They talk about people showing up pretending to be fence contractors, but who are supposedly there to measure the exact angle of their satellite dish. The journal even predicts the next move will be putting sensors on a neighbor's roof. It's this whole cycle of countermeasures and escalations they're describing.
So when you feel like you're being watched 24/7, what do? Well, in this case, the author describes deploying a, let's say, unconventional weapon of their own. They decided to fight back in this digital war using a surprisingly analog tool.
And that weapon is a book. Seriously, the author calls it their JDAM. Think of it as a cheap, precision-guided weapon. Not loaded with explosives, of course, but with information. The goal is to disable these agents, as they call them, by showing them what the author knows. And the price tag for this weapon? Just $11 and change.
Now, to really get the weight of that comparison, you have to know what a real JDAM is. It's a military kit that turns a regular, dumb bomb into a smart, GPS-guided munition. So by calling their book a JDAM, the author isn't just being poetic. They're framing it as a tactical weapon designed to turn raw info into a precise, targeted strike.
The whole strategy here is built on flipping the script. It's about using information asymmetry. The idea is you identify a target, you send them the book to get a reaction, and then if they respond in a way that's, say, illegal, you expose it. That's how they believe they can disrupt a hidden network. Okay, so where do you aim an information missile like this first? Well, according to the journal the author looked up, the first targets were the very people they believed were in the skies above their home. Specifically, the journal says they targeted the top 15 pilots at a private airport community nearby, known as X09. And this wasn't just pulling names out of a hat. The author claims they used this obscure but public database, which they call Elon Musk's GeoIndex, to pinpoint these pilots based on their high scores. And based on all this, the author comes up with a pretty memorable name for it, a Docker hood with wings. That's their term for what they describe as this sort of standardized, ready-to-go deployment of pilot agents whose whole job is to fly around and spy on people. All right, and this is where the story gets really interesting. Because according to the journal, sending out these books did more than just get a reaction. It apparently uncovered a trail of digital breadcrumbs. And those breadcrumbs started to form a much, much bigger pattern. The author says the breakthrough happened almost right away. As soon as they started digging into the address of the #1 ranked pilot, they started seeing all these weird digital anomalies. And they were convinced these weren't mistakes. They were intentional markers. So what did they find? Well, a few big red flags. First, the property tax records for the address seemed to be wiped clean from public sites. Then, the address itself was suddenly unfindable on Google Maps. To the author, this wasn't just some data glitch. These were signs of someone trying to hide, a deliberately obscured, high-value target. And here is the absolute core of the discovery. When a manual search was done, it turned up a nearly identical address, but hundreds of miles away in Louisiana. The similarities were just uncanny. Both were on a Kitty Hawk street, both were right next to a private airport, and, according to the author, both addresses had a really high score in that GeoIndex. It's a mirror image. But wait, it gets even weirder. The pattern didn't stop with the mirrored addresses. Back at that Texas air park, the journal claims another strange thing popped up. Get this. A crazy high number of the top-ranked pilots, we're talking 6 out of the top 11, all within a tiny 800-foot area, live at addresses that start with the number 4.
For the author, this number pattern is the smoking gun. They're completely convinced this is not random. They see it as proof of an intentional encoding system, a subtle marker hidden in plain sight, right there in public data to flag important agents. So using these two alleged markers, the Kitty Hawk street name and the number 4, the author lays out what they believe is a step-by-step guide for investigators to find similar operations anywhere in the country.
And it's a pretty straightforward process they're proposing. Just 4 steps. 1. Search for residential properties on Kitty Hawk streets nationwide. 2. Narrow that down to places with private landing strips. 3. Check those properties against the GeoIndex. And 4. Pay special attention to any addresses where the public records look like they've been messed with.
So think about that. This whole investigative strategy, something the author believes could uncover a nationwide network, all started from one simple act: mailing a book that cost less than $12. It's a really powerful example of what they mean by asymmetric information warfare. And in the end, the author completely reframes their own online activity. They say their Amazon order history isn't just a shopping list anymore. Because it documents all the JDAMs they've sent out, it becomes something else, what they call a crime boost encoder. Basically, a personal logbook for intelligence gathering and targeting.
So this whole story, pulled from the author's journal, really leaves us with a pretty heavy question, doesn't it? In an age where so much of our data is just out there for the taking, who gets to be the analyst? Who holds the power to collect it, to make sense of it, and, yeah, even to weaponize it? It really makes you rethink our whole idea of intelligence. And who gets to be a player in that game?